just a fantasy. That there's this energy that doesn't have to be accounted for, just comes out of nowhere and makes decisions for us, and then we call that energy us, me, when all that me really is, or the I, is the culmination of battling reflexes, of whatever the dominant, whatever becomes the dominant reinforced conditioned preference, whatever has the strongest association in our brain. So when I say a word, it's going to echo inside your head and bounce around. And there's going to be certain things that are going to stick to that word as it bounces around. And what things stick to it, what memories, what attachments, what other words are attached, really depends on how you've been exposed to that word and in what context. And it's just silly to say that there's some other element in there that's making an evaluation, because there isn't. The evaluator is another reflex. It's not a thing. It's not an independent agent. It doesn't have, there's no, the whole concept of free, again, where would this come from? There's atoms and energy and subatomic particles, and they all have a destiny, and they all have a trajectory, and they all have to obey rules. So where would this this force of independence be? How can you possibly be doing something independent of that that physical reality? So anyway, these are the two arguments, though. These are fundamental philosophical concepts, that we are programmed machines. It's hardware and software, not magic dust, and then the facts of our evolution, that we did come from consuming and reproducing little machine, not a conscious entity, a little reproducing machine, a molecular device. Then that's our origins, and that in evaluating this whole circumstance, when you look at the big picture, the whole picture, what has value in it, and we can, I think, ascertain quite certainly that the feeling thing is that's the game. There's no game without the feeling organisms. Without the feeling organism, there's nothing happening in the universe that matters. That's it. And figuring out the balance, and the mechanism of desire, and how much that corrupts our perception, and how much, how much is the misery and the suffering versus that pleasure thing, the pain and the pleasure. Figuring out which one, the ecstasy and the agony, and figuring out which one has real weight, and which one has compensating weight. Yeah, no, those are important questions, and those are harder to definitively describe. But what we can describe is the scale and what you got to put on the scale. I mean, that can be stated pretty absolutely. I mean, the fact that I even have to be hesitant about it because I have to somehow respect the fact that all these people with intelligence are somehow confused and somehow can't see how obvious that is, and how obvious it is that it doesn't have anything to do with a subjective attachment to pain or pleasure, that those things are the substance, and it's not just some kind of peculiar subjective experience that leans you to think pleasure is good and pain is bad. No, those aren't prejudiced opinions. Those are practical facts that just can't be denied rationally, in my opinion. And that's part of this whole discussion. I guess I'm way over 10 minutes, so I might as well just go into part two. Is that there was some discussion later in Jasper's interview, about our progress in culture. It was real emphasis on that and how evolution doesn't apply. Well, it's a different kind of evolution, and Matt will keep arguing that somehow matter didn't evolve into the first living cell, that we somehow can't use the word evolution to describe what chemistry did in the universe. But I think you still can. It's evolution under a different set of rules, but yes, it takes a while for matter to complexify. And that's what we're really talking about. That's what evolution is the chain of complexification. And it starts with simple bits of energy and how it condensates. And eventually it'll condensate into the complex compounds. It takes time to make complex compounds. And so the atmosphere has to have time to create that, the environment. And it's a kind of evolution. And then once it achieved this capacity to reproduce, then that's a different kind of evolution now, because now it's accelerated. The dynamic is accelerated, because now we have this corruptible blueprint that gets into the future. And you start off with asexual reproduction, and then nature finds out by accident, but of course it finds out that you can multiply that capacity to mutate if you have sexual reproduction. And it probably would do trisexual and all kinds of different sexuals if it could have found out some easy way to make 3 partner combinations possible. But it was, probably not a practical expectation of the chemistry. But anyway, the point is that there's with each you get to levels of complexity, the rules subtly change. And when you get to the level of our complexity, where we're now doing this communication thing, we've acquired this vocabulary thing, and now we have this rational mind. And it's not just a thing. It's doing something. It's filtering information over hundreds, thousands of years. And even in our own lifetime, we are part of the filter. And we keep filtering the information. And we keep acquiring a more pure knowledge. And it's a rational and a logical machine, and so it's going to tend to discern the truth over time. It's going to make a better and better, it's going to create better and better descriptions of reality over time. And that's where you want culture to evolve. And that's the force that will. It's not natural selection anymore. Human beings use condoms, so they've escaped the biological nature. And our intelligence is evolving based on pretty strict rules, where it has to fit the evolution into a device that was essentially created or made to be rational and logical. And so it's only through stupid circumstances, like human race becoming addicted to a religion, and then it just keeps re-addicting the next generation with the same bad ideas, the same falsehoods. So yeah, it can get stalled and it can get stagnant, but over time it will weed out that bullshit, because that's what this rational machine does. So anyway, I don't know if there's more to go, so we'll see. If I need to make another video, I'll go through my notes and see if there's something really important that I missed. But there was a lot of statements made. And, Jasper obviously made this one before too. He says there was a 1 in 1 chance of life being created because it happened. And it's more than that. We know planet Earth had soup on it, chemical soup, for billions of years. So it wasn't just a 1 in 1 or 1 of 1. It was obviously 1 in trillions of experiments, trillions of molecules bumping into each other, events where, yes, it didn't work. It didn't turn into a reproducing cell. And it only happened 1 in those trillions of soup experiments. So, I mean, it's a distortion to describe it as some sort of one try, one time happening. We can say life isn't likely, because we see that the circumstance to create it, you can have everything in place, you can keep rolling the dice and you never come up with that 13, that bizarre, unusual event, or the 2 dice on top of each other, probably a better way to describe it. I can roll dice, and how many times are the 2 dice going to land on top of each other? All right. And that's the fact is, that's how unusual life is. It's a rare event, not a plentiful event, because we have seen no other molecule to ever achieve the capacity to reproduce itself naturally. And it would exist if it was happening routinely. It would exist, okay, because it would be able to feed on this very rich chemistry that exists now. Yes, sometimes the chemistry will eat it, and sometimes it will eat the chemistry. But it just makes common sense that if it was happening routinely, this is the environment that it would happen in, because it is such a rich environment. But anyway, so now I guess that's enough. Probably 3 parts. I hope it's only 2. But I can hope, right? It's a desperate hope. Yeah, well, we might make it. I don't know.